Move into question 26 of Prima Secunda of the Summa Theologia. We are getting now into particular passions, as this name implies, of the passions of the soul in particular, and first of love. Now, it's no big surprise that St. Thomas Aquinas wants to first talk about love because it is the principal passion, and he is going to distinguish three types of love in these articles, and it's very important because we're going to learn about a lot about nature, teleology, and also about what Aristotle would have called the final cause, which is what kind of motivates something to do what it does. It also should be noted that when we talk about love here, we're not talking about the virtue of love. The theological virtue of love is something totally different. It's something that is infused by God. Its object is God. The object of the passion of love that we're talking about now is not God specifically. So that is important to keep in mind. All right, Article 1 says whether love is of the concupiscible power. Now, this is differentiating between the concupiscible and the irascible. And if you have watched the previous videos, you'll know that love is one of the 6 concupiscible passions, and the irascible has 5 passions, and they are of a arduous nature. So this is really review more than anything else, but St. Thomas Aquinas, of course, as you might expect, is going to go into a lot more detail here. He says, love is something pertaining to the appetite, since good is the object of both. Now, when you hear the word good, you should go back to early on in the Summa when we're talking about God as goodness itself, and goodness being basically the same as being. And so again, these connections are very important as we go through the Summa here. Wherefore love differs according to the difference of appetites. Now this is very interesting. He says there is an appetite which arises from the apprehension existing not in the subject of the appetite, but in some other. And this is called the natural appetite, because natural things seek what is suitable to them according to their nature. Now, this very much has to do with what Aristotle would have defined as the final cause of a substance, where it's kind of built into it to seek its final end, okay? But it doesn't really come from itself. It's something that's implanted in it by nature, and also, of course, according to St. Thomas Aquinas, by nature's God. He says, by reason of an apprehension which is not in them, right, but the author of their nature, all right? So the author of their nature, which of course would be God, places that in them, and so it's something that's built into them, but isn't really theirs. It's something that comes from the outside. And there is another appetite arising from an apprehension in the subject of the appetite, but from necessity and not from free will, such as in irrational animals the sensitive appetite, which, however, in man has a certain share of liberty insofar as it obeys reason. So this is a second type of love, and that is the sensitive appetite. When we're drawn to something like food, or pizza, hot fudge sundae, or sleep, or what have you, there's a certain draw that takes place that comes within us, but the irrational creatures have this, but not with any kind of voluntariness, no free will, but ours is subject to reason. But of course, as we've learned, it can also disobey reason. And there is another appetite following freely from the apprehension in the subject of the appetite, and this is the rational or intellectual appetite, which is called the will. Okay, so those are the three: the natural appetite, the sensitive appetite, and the will, which are all types of love. Now, in each of these appetites, the name love is given to the principal movement toward the end loved. In the natural appetite, the principle of this movement is the appetitive subject's connaturalness with the thing in which it tends, and may be called natural love. Thus, the connaturalness of a heavy body for the center is by reason of its weight, and may be called natural love. Now, Thomas would use the example of a stone naturally going down, or a fire naturally going up. It doesn't have any free will, it has no awareness of what it's doing, but that is a type of love. And that's a very interesting thing when you think about it, that if you categorize that as love, it's a natural tendency, and that has a lot to do with implications of the love that we have with free will. In like manner, the aptitude of the sensitive appetite or of the will to some good, that is to say, its very complacency in good, is sensitive love or intellectual or rational love. So that sensitive love is in the sensitive appetite, just as intellectual love is in the intellectual appetite, and it belongs to the concupiscible power because it regards good absolutely and not under the aspect of difficulty, which is the object of the irascible faculty. Okay, so this is not something that's arduous or difficult. It's something that's very natural. And again, to make the connection between that natural love, the sensitive love, and then the intellectual love, so to speak, based on free will, is very, very important to make that distinction. All right, is love a passion? Well, of course, this is in the treatise on passions, and so we know that it is. But Thomas isn't so much saying, is it a passion? But he's saying, hey, let's describe the way in which it is a passion. Passion is an effect of the agent on the patient. Okay, it's something that happens to us. It's something that impacts us. Now, a natural agent produces a twofold effect on the patient. For in the first place, it gives it its form, and secondly, it gives it a movement that results from the form. Thus, the generator gives the generated body both weight and the movement resulting from weight, so that weight, from being the principle of movement to the place which is co-natural to that body by reason of its weight, can in a way be called natural love. Okay, something that it does naturally. In the same way, the appetible object gives the appetite first a certain adaptation to itself, which consists in complacency in that object, and from this follows movement toward the appetible object, for the appetitive movement is circular, according to Aristotle, because the appetible object moves the appetite, introducing itself, as it were, into its intention, while the appetite moves towards the realization of the appetible object, so that the movement ends where it began. Okay, so you see the cycle of something good proposing the appetite to be drawn to it, and then it moves towards it. And this is what we see in the distinction of the concupiscible appetites, like love and desire and joy, where you know what it is that you love, you're drawn to it through by appetite or desire, and then you rest in it. Okay, we've already kind of gone through this. That's what he means by the cycle or the circular aspect, as Aristotle talks about. Accordingly, the first change wrought in the appetite by the appetible object is called love, and is nothing else other than complacency in that object. And from this complacency results a movement towards that same object, and this movement is desire. And lastly, there is rest, which is joy, which I've already pretty much explained. Since therefore love consists in a change wrought in the appetite by the appetible object, it is evident that love is a passion, properly so called, according as it is in the concupiscible faculty, in a wider and extended sense, according as it is in the will. So you see how the object that we love moves us, and then we desire it, and then we rest in it. So that should make sense. All right, Article 3 says whether love is the same as dilection. What is dilection? He says here, we find 4 words referring in a way to the same thing: love, dilection, charity, and friendship. They differ, however, in this, that friendship, according to Aristotle, is like a habit, whereas love and dilection are expressed by way of act or passion, and charity can be taken either way. Now, the very definition, as we'll learn in a coming treatise of a virtue, is a habit that basically makes us good. A good habit is a virtue. And so he's saying that love is the habit, but the others, 2 of them, are actions rather than habits. And habits and actions are not exactly the same thing. Moreover, these 3 express acts in different ways. For love has a wider signification than the others, since every dilection or charity is love, but not vice versa. because dilection implies, in addition to love, a choice. Okay, so there's a free will element here, made beforehand, as the very word denotes, and therefore dilection is not in the concupiscible power, but only in the will, okay, because it has free choice, and only in rational animals. Okay, so your dog does not have dilection. Charity denotes, in addition to love, a certain perfection of love, insofar as that which is loved is held to be of great price, as the word implies. Okay, but again, like I said before, this does not imply the theological virtue, because that's something totally different, which we'll get to when we get to the virtues. Article 4, the final article, whether love is properly divided into love of friendship and love of concupiscence. Now, Thomas's teaching on friendship is very beautiful, because you sometimes wonder, well, what does it mean to be a friend? Okay, Socrates would have addressed these kind of questions back in the classical age of philosophy. He says, as Aristotle says, to love is to wish good to someone. Hence, the movement of love has a twofold tendency: towards the good which a man wishes to someone, to himself or to another, and toward that to which he wishes some good. Okay, the thing he wishes and to whom he wishes to have it. Accordingly, man has love of concupiscence toward the good that he wishes to another, and love of friendship toward him to whom he wishes the good. Now, the members of this division are related as primary and secondary, since that which is loved with the love of friendship is loved simply and for itself, whereas that which is loved with the love of concupiscence is loved not simply and for itself, but for something else, to give it to something else, right? That which you love is for another purpose. For just as that which has existence is a being simply, while that which exists in another is a relative being, so because good is convertible with being, the good which itself has goodness, is good simply. But that which is another's good is a relative good. Consequently, the love with which a thing is loved, that it may have some good, is love simply, while the love with which a thing is loved, that it may be another's good, is relative love. So that last part's a little bit confusing, but hopefully that made sense. All right, this brings us to an end of question number 26 of Prima Secunda, talking particularly about love. And we're going to start going through some of the particular passions here. But again, he wanted to start with love because that's the most important, and all the other passions are caused by love. And so it's a good place to start. Thanks for watching. God bless you.